The Alberta municipal election is coming up. I care about it. My family cares about it. But do you think most Albertans actually care to vote? Who's going to be on the next city or town council? Joining me now to discuss the importance of civic elections is Cory Morgan, a columnist with the Western Standard magazine. Cory, welcome to Bridge City News.
Great, thanks for having me on.
First of all, share with our viewers a little bit about what Western Standard is all about and your approach to covering the news of the day.
Certainly, we're an online publication. We were initially, we're what came about from the old Alberta Report, for some people who may remember that from the Byfields. That evolved into Report magazine, and then the Western Standard under Ezra Levant. Then it got shelved for about 6 or 7 years, and Derek Fildebrand and some others kind of rejuvenated it and brought back online 2 years ago. And it's been doing very well. It's a Western focused publication, much like the old magazine, and definitely approaching things from a conservative viewpoint.
So, Cory, why do you feel that this particular round of municipal elections is so vital for our province?
Yeah, well, they all are, but this one has so many other issues packed into it. I mean, we don't often get such an opportunity for so many measures of direct democracy. So we have the equalization referendum, we have the Senate election going on here, we have the daylight savings time referendum going on city-wise in Calgary. There's a huge turnover between the mayor and a great number of councillors, and there's a fluoride plebiscite going on. So there's just so many issues packed into it. I'm almost afraid that it chases people away, but it's very important to take part.
Now, you live just outside of Calgary and Prentice. You're actually joining us from Canmore. Love that area, God's country. I'm a big fan of the mountains here, especially with Waterton not too far outside of our back door here in Lethbridge. But let's talk a bit about Calgary. Who are some of the frontrunners right now with Naheed Nenshi stepping down?
Yeah, well, it appears the top three front runners are Jody Gondek, uh, Jeremy Farkas, and Jeff Davison, and all three of them were former city councilors, which shows. And there's 27 candidates, but those are the only three that are breaking double-digit support. Because name recognition is just so critical in these municipal elections. And as much as there might be some very good candidates back there in the pack, it's just hard to grab traction if you don't have that established track record on city council like the others. So the three incumbent members who decided to go throw their hats in for mayor are the top three running right now.
You know, it's interesting you talk about name recognition. It's the same thing here in Lethbridge with Blaine Hagan, who's a current city councillor running for mayor, and Bridget Mearns, who's a two-time former councillor, also running here. And they're the two front runners here in Lethbridge as well so far. There's also Stephen Mogden, who is a very popular lawyer in our city too, so we'll see what happens. Now, Cory, why should people really care about municipal issues? What kinds of things are we talking about that will have a severe impact on individuals and business owners?
Yeah, well, people underestimate. I mean, that's the closest level of government to you. Ironically and unfortunately, citizens are prone not to paying as close attention to it as the bigger levels of government, such as provincial and federal, perhaps because you see more eye-catching things like international affairs and large domestic policies. But the taxes, the services, the things that are happening close to you really impact your local businesses, your local employment, your standard of living, your neighbors, your households. It's really critical, and people just sometimes take it for granted, I guess you could say. But it's a very important that they pay attention to these and constantly putting incumbents back in. I mean, perhaps they've been doing a good job, but it also shows that they can get away with a lot because people aren't necessarily paying attention to what's happening.
Yeah, you talk about that name recognition. It's like, well, this is the only name I recognize. I'm voting for that woman or that man again, right? Now, you know, this could have a huge impact, this municipal election, on our municipal economies, how each city handles the next waves of COVID-19, either implementing more strict lockdowns or letting businesses function more freely. Your thoughts?
Well, yes, and Calgary in particular. I mean, that's almost half of Alberta's population is jammed into the Calgary area, and Calgary's downtown is hollowed out. There is a crisis going on in that city right now. The official vacancy rate in downtown office buildings is over 30%, which is already catastrophic. The real vacancy rate is probably closer to 50. A lot of that space is leased by companies, but there's just nobody in it, and they're just sitting on it. And the city has to figure out a way to deal with this donut of a city they're building in a sense right now. Taxation policy has always become very reliant on, I guess you could say, the easy money of oil company tenants and people in the downtown core, and those just aren't there anymore. So they really need some new, in my view, some new faces in, and they're going to get them, but ones who have a good vision on how we're going to come at things differently, bring in new enterprise, bring in fresh ideas to try and rejuvenate that crumbling downtown, because it's such a colossal waste right now.
Yeah, high vacancy rate. You're absolutely right. Let's talk about Calgary potentially reinventing itself instead of just all about the oil and gas and the energy sector. Is there a way that Cowtown, my hometown, can do that?
There definitely is. I mean, it's a great, beautiful city with the Rocky Mountains on our doorstep. Of course, as a place to locate a business or a company, it has a lot of things to attract people in. They have to maintain a business-friendly climate, though, and I mean, we can diversify. There are other companies, whether it's in the tech industries or pharmaceutical development, a great many things, and we have a lot of skilled engineers and administrators who unfortunately may have lost work with the energy boom gone away, but they're still there and they have transferable skills. So if we reach out and if we maintain though that welcoming pro-business attitude, we can bring them in. But Calgary's had a bit of a difficulty with the municipal government clashing with business, and it hasn't really been a business focus. So we're kind of hoping that there will be a more welcoming atmosphere with the new council and mayor, whoever it may be, when they come in soon.
Now, Cory, any thoughts as to why we tend to see a much lower voter turnout for municipal elections as compared to both provincial and federal elections?
I hate to say it, but some of it's just that the issues are a little bit boring. Garbage collection, road construction, potholes. But these are still multi-billion-dollar issues. Those people who are issuing development permits or dealing with residential zoning. Again, it sounds so dry, but it is so very, very important. In this time around, I'm a little bit fearful just because we're coming right on the heels of a federal election.
Right.
So there could be some voter fatigue. People have seen so much politics in the last month. They just want to say, throw their hands up. It's been a challenging 2 years as it is. The last thing I want to do is listen to a bunch more politicians yammering at my ears for another month. But hopefully they see through that and still realize how important it is. Just get out one more time and then we can settle in for the winter.
And all of those road signs, all of the election signs, all the way up and down the roads, like, oh my word, there are thousands of them, right? Sometimes you try to turn a corner, you can't see
it's
the other
over.
vehicle because all these election signs. Some are bigger, smaller, whatever the case. So it'd be nice to see those election signs finally cleaned up as well. Now, Cory, this election also gives us an opportunity to cast a ballot for Senate nominees we talked a little bit about earlier. Some people will likely see them as a waste of time because there's a good chance Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, I'm just going to appoint this one, like I did when I grabbed the Banff mayor, right? And appointed that person as senator. So why should we even bother voting for a senator in waiting anyway? Why should we even bother?
Yeah, well, it's a point of principle, and it is for people who haven't followed Alberta history. It's been kind of almost a long-standing tradition from back when we put Stan Waters in back at the end of the '80s, and he did manage to get into Senate. People said it was a waste of time that time. A couple other senators, Doug Black, I believe Burt Brown got appointed through Senate election processes. All of them had to wait a while before they got in. So perhaps Prime Minister Trudeau, it's very unlikely he would put them in, but he's not going to be our prime minister forever, even if it may feel like it. And the next prime minister may be more receptive to choosing those who we've chosen. And I mean, there's nothing to lose. You're going in to cast your ballot. Pick the best person you can for yourself, and they may end up there representing you. It also gives us just more of a moral high ground to stand on when we say, look, we're tired of this archaic system where senators are appointed for political reasons. We'd like you to recognize our choice. So we have a stronger voice in that way.
Now, Cory, we also have an opportunity to vote on a couple of provincial referendums, one being daylight savings time and the other on keeping the or ending equalization payments. Again, this is, of course, is not binding by the federal government in Ottawa anyway. So why should we even bother casting a vote in that regard too?
And it's much like with the Senate election. At least it's an opportunity for us to express ourselves very solidly. So it's not a newspaper poll, it's not a publication, it's not an online poll. Will be hundreds of thousands, if not millions of Albertans will have said they are not happy, or perhaps they are happy with the status quo with equalization, which should carry some weight. And it gives Premier Kenney or future premiers something to go to Ottawa with and say, look, this isn't working for our citizens. They're upset with this. Let's start realistically talking about reform. It's a way to get the ball in motion, at least. The other alternative is to do nothing. And that I don't think most Albertans feel is acceptable. So it might feel futile, but it is an effort, and it can lead to more changes, hopefully, down the road.
What's interesting too is I believe Jason Kenney, when he was part of the Harper cabinet, he was the one that was involved with the initial equalization to begin with. So it's kind of ironic now that he's going to go back to Ottawa saying, hey, this doesn't work for us anymore, right? This doesn't work for Albertans. Now, Cory, there's also the vote on whether to stay with the current practice of switching over every fall from daylight savings time back to standard time or permanently staying with daylight savings time. Some say it's not a big issue one way or the other, but others believe it's something that can actually affect our health and how we potentially interact with other provinces and states which have different time zones.
Yeah, and that one actually, I was kind of slid under the radar. I wasn't paying much attention to it. I thought that most people were pretty ambivalent to it, but it's getting actually a bit heated. Some people are quite concerned. I've got a feeling from what I'm hearing that this one's going to fail. I think maybe people want to move away from changing the clocks twice a year, but going to the straight time that this is offering right now isn't what they want to do. But I don't know. We seem to be crippled with the indecision when it comes to changing the clocks with that. And then this referendum might not be the one where we decide to break away from the status quo. But it'll be interesting exercise to watch and see what Albertans choose out of it.
Now, with this municipal election as well, we're going to be casting a ballot for school trustees, public and separate. Let's talk about the importance of educating ourselves and finding out who these trustees are before we place an X next to their name.
It's absolutely critical. I mean, these are the people who are going to represent you towards the school boards and the schools themselves. And these are the schools that are educating your children. And that's as precious a commodity as we have. So there's your opportunity to have that representation in there. And I've got to admit, my kids are out of school and graduated. Before I go out to vote on Monday, I'm going to have to go out and see who the candidates are. I haven't paid close attention, and whoever looks best to me at that point is who I'll choose. But as I said, it's that irony of the government that's so important to you and so close to you, yet we pay the least attention to it. And it's really important because some of these trustees have some very different visions on what they'd like to see in the education system. And if you don't put your voice forward now, you might have somebody out there speaking on behalf of you for your kid's future that doesn't really actually represent you at all.
So, Cory, any final thoughts on why Albertans should bother voting at the municipal election on Monday?
I guess it's almost cliche, but it's a right that we have. It's such a fantastic one. I mean, democracy is such a great system, as many hiccups and flaws as it has, and we should never take it for granted. Even if they feel like minor issues, we've got the chance to get out there and make our voice heard in it. And it doesn't take that long, and it's not that hard. So, but go register that vote, and then you can complain about the outcome for 4 more years after that.
Every vote counts. Cory Morgan is a columnist with the Western Standard magazine. Thanks a lot for joining us today.
All right, thank you.